The oppressive summer heat lingered over our tranquil suburban street, creating a palpable stillness that suggested something was on the verge of shattering. I had always perceived my life as something predictable, secure, perhaps. A woman in her early 50s, I had found my groove, work, home, and the rare glass of wine on the porch as the crickets serenaded the evening. My little blue sedan, steadfast and true, had been my companion through it all. Until it ceased to be. One morning, it coughed, sputtered, and refused to start, leaving me stranded in my driveway, gazing at the hood as if it concealed the mysteries of existence. That's when he showed up. Hey Tom, my neighbor's husband, leaning nonchalantly against the fence that divided our yards, his eyes sparkling with an elusive intrigue. Experiencing issues with your vehicle? He called out, his voice velvety, as if he had been anticipating the perfect moment to bridge the unspoken divide between us. I nodded, pushing a lock of hair away from my face, suddenly conscious of the droplets of sweat forming on my neck. Tom exuded a natural charisma, his broad shoulders and knowing grin hinted at a depth of understanding that drew people in. For 2 decades, he shared his life with Linda, earning the title of the neighborhood's golden boy. He could often be found in his garage, immersed in projects, or meticulously mowing the lawn, leaving one to ponder what other aspects of life he managed with such skill. I had never considered him beyond the casual exchanges of friendly greetings and light conversation during neighborhood gatherings. Yet that morning, a change occurred. The atmosphere was dense, electric, reminiscent of the instant just prior to a tempest. He strolled over, toolbox in hand, and lifted the hood with a self-assuredness that sent my heart racing. "Let's take a look at what we have," he said softly, leaning closer to the engine, his arm grazing mine as he highlighted a mess of wires. I ought to have taken a step back, yet I chose not to. The aroma, motor oil mingled with a subtle hint of wood, enveloped me, and I couldn't help but stay, captivated by the precise and confident movements of his hands. We engaged in light conversation while he focused on his task, discussing the weather, the neighborhood, and how Linda was perpetually occupied with her book club. But then his tone shifted, his words dragging, each one hitting with a gravity I couldn't overlook. "You know," he said, looking up from the engine, his gaze meeting mine, "I've always noticed you. Here I sit on your porch, solitude enveloping me. It appears rather unfortunate." My breath was taken away. The words lingered in the air, thick with meaning. I chuckled lightly, whispering something about managing just fine by myself, yet my tone felt fragile, lacking conviction. Tom merely smiled and returned to the car, yet the idea had taken root. In the days that followed, he discovered various excuses to swing by, inspecting the car, volunteering to secure a loose bolt, with each visit lingering longer than the previous one. I found myself observing him from my kitchen window, noting how his shirt adhered to his back while he toiled, and how his laughter appeared to hang in the atmosphere. Linda was perpetually absent, constantly attending meetings or lost in her books, and I began to question the nature of their marriage. The true nature of Tom as a person. On a Thursday evening, the sky was a canvas of bruised purples and pinks, and that's when everything changed. In the dimness of my garage, I found myself wrestling with a jar of forgotten screws when Tom's figure emerged at the doorway, outlined by the waning daylight. "Looking for some assistance?" he inquired, entering without pausing for a response. The room seemed to shrink with his presence, the atmosphere vibrating with an unsettling tension. He grasped the jar from my hands, his fingers lightly grazing against mine, and I became still. His touch radiated warmth, intentional and precise, and when his gaze met mine, the desire in his eyes was unmistakable. "You shouldn't be out here by yourself," he murmured, his tone deep and rough. "A person of your caliber deserves so much more." I ought to have asked him to go. I ought to have brought up Linda, the ring adorning his finger, the life we had constructed together in this serene neighborhood. However, I chose not to. My heart raced, and a warmth coursed through my skin, a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. He moved in, just within reach, and I could sense the heat emanating from him, and I allowed it. The jar fell from my grasp, crashing onto the floor, and in that fleeting moment, he appeared, his hand resting on my waist, drawing me closer. His lips met mine, filled with urgency and desire, and I responded, my fingers weaving through his hair, the universe shrinking to the sensation of his body pressed against me. It was audacious, taboo, and it ignited every fiber of my being. We separated, gasping for air, the weight of our actions enveloping me like a tidal surge. His eyes were frantic, probing into mine, and for a fleeting moment, silence enveloped us both. He leaned closer and murmured, "No one has to know." His tone carried both desperation and assurance, and I could feel its heaviness resting in my heart. I nodded, my throat constricted, yet the excitement of his touch remained, battling against the guilt that was beginning to seep in. He quietly exited the garage, leaving me in solitude with the resonance of his words and the lingering scent of him on my skin. That evening, slumber eluded me. I reclined in bed, gazing at the ceiling, my thoughts cycling through each moment, the sensation of his hands, the flavor of his kiss, the thrill of it all. What have I done? I had crossed a threshold, one that was now irrevocable, and I found myself ensnared in a secret that threatened to unravel it all. Linda was not just my neighbor, she was my friend. How could I confront her, fully aware of my actions with her husband? And yet, even as guilt consumed me, I couldn't shake thoughts of Tom, his voice, his touch, the way he gazed at me as if I were the only thing that existed. I found myself ensnared, caught in the tension of longing and fear, with no inkling of what lay ahead. As I stood on my porch the next morning, cradling a cup of coffee that had turned cold, I noticed Tom across the yard, absorbed in the task of tinkering with his car. He looked up, our eyes locking, and a gradual smile unfolded on his lips. My heart raced. This was far from finished. Far from it. As I stepped back inside, the burden of our secret loomed larger, a ticking time bomb poised to detonate. The morning after that kiss, my home felt constricted, as if the walls were inching closer, echoing the lingering memory of Tom's lips against mine. I found myself at the kitchen sink, gazing out the window, the coffee in my hands quivering just a bit. Across the yard, Linda's roses flourished in flawless rows, a poignant reminder of the life I had put at risk of shattering. I found myself revisiting the moment, his hands gripping my waist, the warmth of his breath, the way I surrendered to something so forbidden it was intoxicating. I convinced myself it was just an error, a fleeting moment of weakness, yet beneath the surface, I recognized the truth of my deception. In reality, I longed to encounter him once more. And that terrified me more than anything else. I steered clear of the garage for days, keeping my curtains tightly closed, as if that could block the magnetic draw I sensed toward him. Yet, in this quaint neighborhood, Tom was not the type to blend into the shadows. On Wednesday, as I was hauling my trash cans to the curb, I caught a glimpse of his voice, deep and recognizable, slicing through the morning mist. "Could you use some assistance with those?" he inquired, propped against his mailbox, his gaze shimmering with that familiar, perilous glint. My stomach churned. I muttered a vague assurance of being okay, yet he was already making his way across the street, his steps deliberate, as if he was fully aware of the impact he had on me. He seized the cans, his arm grazing mine, and I experienced that familiar electric jolt from the garage. "You've been avoiding me," he remarked, neither accusatory nor confrontational, his tone as smooth as aged whiskey. I tried to speak, to refute the claim, but the words eluded me. He moved in, just within reach, allowing me to notice the subtle stubble on his jaw and the gentle curve of his lips forming a half-smile. "I can't stop thinking about you," he whispered, and my heart raced wildly within my chest. I ought to have turned and left, yet my feet remained planted, my body failing me as I locked eyes with him. In his eyes, there was a primal intensity, a yearning that reflected my own, and it felt as if the universe condensed to just the two of us, standing too near on a silent street. We held back from kissing, not in that moment. Yet the atmosphere surrounding us was charged, thick with our unspoken desires. He trailed behind me to my porch, suggesting he take another look at the car, and I allowed it, fully aware it was merely a pretext. The atmosphere in the garage was thick with tension. He bent over the engine, his shirt lifting just enough to reveal a hint of skin, and I found myself captivated, my fingers yearning to reach out and connect. We conversed, yet it was transformed. Each word seemed like a challenge, each look a movement nearer to the precipice. He shared with me the story of Linda, how she had drifted away, how their marriage had turned into a ritual they both enacted. "She doesn't see me anymore," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, his gaze fixed intently on mine. "Not in the same way you do." I'm uncertain about who made the initial move. In an instant, we were simply standing there, then, his hands were on me, drawing me closer, his lips colliding with mine in a fervor that left me breathless. This kiss was unlike any other, more intense, wild, as if we were in a frantic competition with time itself. My hand slipped beneath his shirt, sensing the warmth of his skin, and he let out a groan against my lips, his fingers gripping my hips tightly. The garage door stood ajar, revealing the neighborhood beyond, yet I felt indifferent. All I could sense was him, the way he ignited a spark within me that I hadn't experienced in years. But then, a car door banged shut. We halted, separating, my heart racing so intensely I feared it would betray us. From the garage window, I caught sight of Linda's car parked in their driveway, her figure gliding toward the house. Tom's face was flushed, his breath coming in quick gasps, yet there was no hint of fear in his eyes. He appeared, filled with excitement. "We must exercise caution," he murmured, his hand lingering on my arm, his thumb gliding over my skin in a manner that left my knees trembling. I nodded, yet my thoughts were in turmoil. Prudent? We had just shared a kiss in my garage, mere steps away from where his wife was busy unloading groceries. What were we up to? He quietly departed, leaving me in solitude with the rhythmic thrum of my heartbeat and a heavy weight in my stomach. That night, I found myself unable to eat, unable to find a moment's peace. Each creak of the house startled me, as I half anticipated Linda to appear at my door, her eyes aflame with accusations. Tom's face lingered in my mind, the intensity of his gaze haunting me, like a fever that refused to fade. Yet, the guilt lingered, gnawing at my insides. Linda had always shown her warmth, bringing me cookies when I moved in, inviting me to her book club even though I never attended. How could I have done this to her? Still, the memory of Tom's hands, his voice, stirred a longing within me that was impossible to dismiss. The following day, I spotted them side by side, Tom and Linda, making their way to the car, her hand resting on his arm, sharing laughter over something he had just mentioned. A constriction gripped my chest, a tumult of envy and embarrassment coiling within me. But then Tom looked in my direction, if only for a moment, and his gaze carried a promise that caught my breath. Later that afternoon, I received a text from a burner number, one that was unfamiliar to me. "Join me this evening," it conveyed. Backyard, midnight. My pulse quickened. This was chaos, a boundary we could never retreat from. As the minutes slipped away, I caught myself glancing at the clock, my determination fading with each tick. At midnight, I ventured into my backyard, the shadows enveloping me like a hidden truth. Tom stood by the fence, a shadowy figure against the fading light. Without uttering a sound, he drew me into the darkness, his lips meeting mine before I had a chance to process it. It was swift, urgent, our fingers clumsily navigating the shadows, the excitement of risk rendering each contact charged with intensity. As we separated, a light illuminated in his home, Linda's bedroom window. Chills coursed through my veins. Did she catch a glimpse of us? Was she aware? Tom's grip on my hand grew firmer, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're okay," he said, though the sharpness in his voice was unmistakable. We were not fine. Far from it. I made my way back to my house, my heart racing, the burden of our actions heavy upon me. This had transformed from a mere kiss into an inferno, and its flames were rapidly expanding. As I reclined in bed, gazing at the ceiling, it dawned on me that I was in over my head. Tom was a man bound by vows, while I found myself entwined in a tapestry of deception and longing. However, the most unfortunate aspect? I was uncertain about whether I should cease my efforts. As I slipped into a fitful slumber, a single thought consumed me: what unfolds when a secret of this magnitude can no longer remain concealed? That night, when the light flickered on in Linda's bedroom window, sleep eluded me. My heart throbbed like a drum, echoing a relentless rhythm of fear and guilt that refused to grant me peace. Tom's face lingered in the shadows, his eyes searing into mine, his hands pressing against me, urgent, possessive, as if he were seizing something that didn't belong to him. I had traversed every boundary, turned my back on a companion, and now the atmosphere was thick with tension, as if the universe itself was pausing, anticipating the consequences. Each creak of the house, every rustle from outside, sent a jolt through me, convinced it was Linda at my door, poised to unravel my life. Yet the morning arrived, silent and painfully ordinary, and in some way, that felt even more unbearable. The universe seemed to challenge me, urging me to maintain the facade that everything remained the same. I steered clear of my windows, my porch, and anything that could draw me into Tom's sphere. Living next door to him felt like attempting to escape a tempest. You sensed its approach, regardless of how swiftly you tried to flee. By noon, I was a mess, my hands trembling as I struggled to concentrate on my tasks, my thoughts looping through every impulsive decision: the garage, the backyard, the way I had allowed myself to surrender to him. I convinced myself it was finished, that I would bring it to a close, that I would discover a way to confront Linda and bear the weight of the embarrassment. Suddenly, my phone vibrated, a message from that mysterious burner number. "We need to have a conversation. Garage, 2 p.m. A knot formed in my stomach. I ought to have erased it, cut him off, relocated to a different state. Instead, I found myself ticking off the seconds, my determination disintegrating like grains of sand. At 2 p.m., I entered the garage, the atmosphere heavy with the aroma of oil and a sense of remorse. Tom stood by my car, his posture relaxed yet his expression a mystery. "You're scared," he stated, his voice calm and unwavering. I nodded, my throat constricted, unable to look him in the eye. "We can't keep doing this," I murmured, the words echoing emptily in the silence. He moved nearer, his aura enveloping the surroundings, and I sensed that unmistakable attraction, akin to an irresistible force I couldn't resist. "I know," he said, his hand finding its way to my arm, his thumb drawing languid circles that sent delightful shivers racing down my spine. "Yet, I find it impossible to distance myself from you. And I doubt that you desire that from me." He was correct, and I despised him for it. I despised myself even more. His touch ignited a flame within me, and I was poised to blaze brightly. We hadn't kissed, not yet, but the atmosphere around us crackled with intensity, each word, each look, drawing us nearer to that pivotal moment. He confided that thoughts of me consumed him constantly, that Linda's absence had created a void within him, and that I was the sole anchor to his sanity. His words enveloped me, nourishing the desire within, silencing the guilt that echoed relentlessly in my thoughts. And then, in a moment of weakness, I allowed him to draw me nearer, his lips grazing my neck, my fingers gripping his shirt as everything else faded away. Yet destiny has a peculiar knack for striking when you're already at your lowest. The garage door rattled, and we instinctively separated, my heart racing into my throat. Linda stood there, her outline stark against the bright light, her expression a blend of disbelief and anger. "What on earth is this?" She spat, her voice quaking with a fury I had never witnessed from her before. My legs gave way, and I clutched the car for balance, my mouth agape yet silent. Tom moved ahead, his hands lifted, yet Linda's gaze was elsewhere. Her gaze was fixed on me, seething with a sense of betrayal. "Is it you? Is that my friend?" Within my own community, every word was a knife, slicing deeper with each utterance. I stumbled over my words, attempting to convey my thoughts, but what was there to articulate? Was it an error? I was unable to resist. Each rationale felt utterly feeble, even within my thoughts. Tom attempted to voice his thoughts, but Linda interrupted him, her tone escalating. "You better not. I've been aware of this for weeks, Tom. The long hours, the justifications. I just didn't think it was her. She turned to me, tears cascading down her cheeks, and the sight of them shattered something within me. I trusted you, she said, her voice trembling. I welcomed you into my space. And then she vanished, leaving in a fury. The silence that followed weighed down on me like a heavy shroud. Tom extended his hand toward me, but I pushed him aside, my tears cascading down my cheeks. Leave, I rasped, my throat burning. He paused, his expression a blend of remorse and urgency, yet I found it impossible to meet his gaze. He departed, and I collapsed onto the ground, the frigid concrete gnawing at my knees. The revelation had emerged, and it had shattered everything. Linda's face came to mind, the hurt I had inflicted, and the upheaval I had brought to our lives, hers, mine, perhaps even Tom's. The community would learn in no time. Rumors travel swiftly in environments such as this. I would embrace the role of the antagonist, the one who disrupts the harmony, and I earned that title. Time drifted by in a blur. Linda vanished, offered no call, and didn't even glance in my direction when I spotted her in her driveway. Tom attempted to reach out, but I had already blocked his number, erasing every trace of him from my phone, yet I found it impossible to erase him from my thoughts. I ceased venturing outdoors, halted responses to the doorbell, existing like a specter within my own home. The vehicle remained idle in the garage, a poignant symbol of the origins of it all. I contemplated the idea of relocating, beginning anew in a different place, yet the burden of my past actions loomed over me, as if it would trail me wherever I went. One evening, I ventured out onto my porch for the first time in weeks, and beheld Linda's house, shrouded in darkness and silence. A for sale sign loomed in their yard, illuminated by the pale glow of the moonlight. My heart plummeted. They were departing, due to my actions. I found myself rooted in place, the warm summer air enveloping me, and came to understand that certain mistakes linger on, refusing to dissipate. They etch themselves into your existence, into the lives of those around you, and you hold on to them eternally. I sought to embrace life, to ignite a flame I believed had faded, yet all I accomplished was to reduce everything to ashes. As I stepped back inside, the void of my home reflected the deep ache within me, a poignant reminder that certain secrets, once revealed, can never be held back.